Hey friends, I want to share with you an online reading program that I really like. If you're looking for something to help support students with reading and accountability while we're doing distance learning, I actually use it in my classroom before we started doing distance learning, but now it's becoming even more relevant. This program works really well for third grade and up. It's somewhat limited in the number of choices for third and fourth grade levels, but from fifth grade up, it's really great. And there are choices for third and fourth. It also has read aloud choices, so you can push kids up to a slightly higher level and it'll read it to them. To use this program, it's completely free. You just need to sign up. And now I have my teacher screen here. I have a library and I have classes over here on the left-hand top corner. If I go to my classes, a really nice thing, if I go to manage classes, is that I can create classes using Google Classroom. I already have my students set in Google Classroom, so I can just click here and import one of my classes and they'll automatically import all of my students here. There's all my Google Classrooms. I can pick the one I want to import and then it will give me all of my kids. Right here, I already have my classroom for this year, which is Reading 1920. Once you have your class set up, then you can go to Library. And I like to just browse the library by grade level usually. So if I'm teaching fifth grade, so my on grade level reading group, I would look at fifth and sixth grade texts. And you can see it'll give you all kinds of texts, and there's a huge collection. Each one of them will have some little colored bars at the bottom corner of the text box telling you the genre and the approximate grade level. A lot of them also have Lexile levels if that's something that you attend to in your classroom. You can also do different limits on your searches over here on the left-hand toolbar. I already limited it to 5th and 6th grade, but I can search by individual themes, which is pretty cool. I can search by specific genres. Sometimes I just want literary text, so I just limit it down to fiction, or I'll go to poetry, science fiction, short stories, etc. I'll add poems on here, and then it'll just change what is available for me to pick from. Once I find something that I think looks good, like I would like to do this Dreams by Langston Hughes with my class this year. I have two choices. I can either just favorite it by clicking on that little heart in the bottom corner, and then I can just kind of collect my favorites from year to year, or I can actually click on the box and it will open up the text and I can assign it to students. This is the teacher view. It's got this really short poem here, but it has these nice little boxes as your students are reading along. It has definitions that can pop up for certain words if they're not sure what those words mean. You can turn only definitions or only footnotes or everything on if you want to. It always has a gray box at the top that gives kids some background knowledge, and it gives them in bold print here a focus as they are reading. Students are allowed to hear this text read aloud to them. They can have it translated. If they click on that, it can be translated into Spanish. It'll leave the text in English in front of them, but they can click on the little earth next to each line and they can see it written in Spanish. No guarantees that's a good translation. I'm pretty sure it's using a computer translation for that. On the other side, you have an annotation tool that only works on Chromebooks, not on touch screens at the moment, but it's really nice if your kids are working on Chromebooks. It has guiding questions you can turn on during the assignment process, and that will blur out the rest of the text. They can only read up to the first bubble here, the Q1, and then they'll have to answer a question about what they just read to ensure they understand it before they move on. You can put that on if you want to use that, or you can turn it off for your students and just let them read the whole text all the way through. Next to that, there's assessment questions. Every text in here has a quiz or assessment with it, and it includes the standards for each question. It also has part A, part B questions, which is really awesome because we know a lot of testing does that, and it's a tricky thing for kids. Part A will be a big inference question, usually main idea or something like that. And then the part B will be the evidence to support it. A lot of them also have a written response at the end where they have to write a written response that you would grade. You also have at the fourth thing here, discussion questions, and it even has a little instructional video. If you're not sure how to do a good discussion, it has starters, it has a template, it even has a demo video, so that's very cool if you're not super comfortable with that. And it has a couple of questions. This one says, describe a dream that you hold on to. Why is it important to you not to let this dream go? Those are kind of broader questions based out of the text, but not entirely text dependent. So if you like this particular text and you would like to give it to students, you have two choices. Up here in the left top corner, it says assign text or download PDF. So it's really nice when I have reading groups, I can download this onto paper. It'll have the text, it'll have all the questions on it. I can choose what I want to print out for my students, and then I have them come back into it after we've met in group and do the questions online, or you can assign the entire text online. So I'll just hit that top button. You can assign the text to an entire classroom. So I could send this text to my entire classroom, all 23 of my students, or I can select the second button, which is to give it to individual students. And that's what I usually use this for, is I give it to students by their reading groups. So then if you click down here, where it says select students, it'll give you a list. I won't do that for my students' privacy, but it'll give you a list of students, and you can click their names and it will give it to those students. For now, I'll just assign it to my whole class. Here it says the annotation task. If you want to change that task, you can. This is the task that it comes with. I usually just leave it because it's usually well aligned with the questions. Enable guided reading mode. Guided reading mode was where they blurred out part of the text and students had to answer a comprehension question to access each new section. It's a default to not having that option turned on. I tend to turn it on for my students because it gives me a lot of information. If students are not able to get through a comprehension question about the first part of a text, I know I need to kind of intervene with them and talk about how are we reading as we go. And then it has a start date you can choose, and then a due date. And let's see, I can't actually access it. There we go. You can set those to whenever you want. And then you just assign the text. Get rid of that thing. You can send the assignment once it's been assigned. You can have it automatically post into the Google Classroom. You can get a link or you can email it. Often I just leave that alone. I just put an X. And I just have my students know that they need to sign in every week. Once they sign in, it will automatically show them what assignments they have waiting for them. So I don't always update every assignment in the Google Classroom. I just have a link to CommonLit. When they log in with their Google emails, it gives them our assignments right on the screen. And then after I've given this assignment, students will do the assignment and turn it in. And I can go to my classes and see the assignments that have been turned in. So here's the assignment I just made. I can see my students' performance, etc. I can grade after students have turned this in. No one has turned it in yet, obviously. I can also do text that other students have turned in to me. So this is one I did as an example. These pumpkins sure can kick. And it says, someone's turned in their assignment to me. I have one short answer response left to grade. So when you click on that, this is my own assignment. So I can look at it. It has the question. I can hide the names if I wanted to. It has the question I was looking at that they gave me. It gives an exemplar for a response. And then it shows the student's response. And then you can click assign score. It's a 0 to 4, and you can type student feedback, which I find really awesome. Once you've scored it, I'll just put a quick note in there. Great use of text evidence. Then you can save it, and you can do all of your students that are turned in at one time. You can check their responses to the multiple choice by looking up here at these questions, And there, again, question 5 was their written response. You could also see students' annotations. If they were doing annotations, if you go over here on the left-hand side and click on student annotations, you can see what they highlighted and what notes they wrote, if your internet is not as slow as mine. There it is. So I did this one on my Chromebook, so it would actually let me do annotations, but you can see all the things that I chose to highlight if I was a student, and then the notes I chose to write on the side. Again, that doesn't work on tablets for students. It would only work on a regular laptop or a Chromebook, but hopefully they'll update those annotations soon, so they'll work on touch screens also. And then I go back to my grading page and I can look at the assignment report and see how many of my students are doing what. I can get it all broken down. I can see how many attempts they had to make at each guiding question. Those are the questions that show as they're reading how they're understanding it. I can hide my names again and see how people are doing on each of these questions and what the question was by clicking it, what their answer was, and what the standard is that was addressed by that question. So that's a really nice thing. I can go to student performance and see my overall class performance. And I don't have my students on this one because I don't want to show their names, but you can see all kinds of information, and it's a really nice program and it's completely free. So that's awesome. And that's how I use CommonLit in my classroom. You can just collect a huge number of texts that you like in your favorites for your library. They even have Spanish texts now. They have text sets, which are really great. You can get a whole bunch of texts about Egypt, all of these texts together. You can also get units, which is a really awesome thing. For 5th graders, we have an author study unit where the CommonLit has assigned a number of texts that all fit in the unit. It has essential questions, it has various assignments down the side, and texts for students to answer questions about, and then it has an overarching final assessment question. So that's another really cool thing to use. Finally, if I go back to a text that I was looking at, let me go back to grade level. If I click on any text, let's see, I'll click on this one. You can also find paired text. So up here at the top, there's these tabs as the text, and then there's other texts that can be paired with it. So it's a really cool way to do some thematic reading. So other texts on CommonLit that would be a good pairing with this text are here. You can assign two texts together. You can also go to related media. I like to do this to give background knowledge to my students, especially if they're reading about a context that's not as familiar. And it has videos that are appropriate for students. And they're usually pretty short. This one's 6 minutes, which is a little bit longer than average on these videos. But I just link those into their Google Classroom so that when we are doing a reading about a certain topic, we can have a lot of different areas where we are getting information about that topic. There's answer keys. If you're doing this in a group and you aren't sure what the answers are, that's happened to me more than once, unfortunately. Some of these are really tricky and I need to double check. It just makes me feel a little more confident that I know how to guide my groups. And there's a parent guide here as well to send home for families if you'd like them to discuss or know about what's been happening in reading group in class, so they can support that learning at home as well, which is super great. So those are all the features that I really like with CommonLit. Again, completely free for students and teachers. It's an amazing resource. I feel like it's engaging. It has a lot of supportive information to it, and I like to use it a lot. Thanks. I hope you enjoy using CommonLit if you decide to use this program, and I'll see you next time. Bye.